Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today and I hope you're all having an absolutely fantastic Thursday, but pause! I can see you're panicking right now. I'm going to ask you to calm down because the backdrop's different, the lighting's different, the camera quality's different, microphone doesn't sound as good. Matty, what is going on right now? Well, I've been taking on the arduous task of playing Skyrim Anniversary Edition. I'm working on my review right now. We streamed some of that for about 3 hours today, and I gotta put some more time into it until my review is done. So once I wrapped up the streaming, man, what exhausting work. So what I did was I warmed up some tea and thought to myself, home sounds really good today. So I'm chilling here and we're talking about Starfield. Really excited to dive into it because we have new concept art, music, we got a sneak peek at that, and we're also gonna be going through a Todd Howard AMA where we got new details on Starfield, and even some games that we all care about, like Skyrim, like Fallout. So we're going to talk about all of that in today's video. If you're new here, you're looking for more Bethesda information, of course, as I said, Skyrim Anniversary Edition review on the way. Much more Skyrim content happening after that. We have the Xbox 20th Anniversary event, which who knows what's going to happen there. And on top of that, we're working on the KOTOR Switch review. So a lot is coming your way. Just stay patient. There's a lot of things I'm excited about that are happening all on the same day. So I'm one person, and I got a lot to work through. Anyway, let's talk Starfield. Okay, first things first, new concept art. You may be wondering where all of this popped up from. As we all know, 10th anniversary for Skyrim today. And what that means is an orchestra was playing the beautiful music, the beautiful soundtrack of Skyrim. I personally didn't sit down for it. As someone who works with Bethesda games a lot, I hear the soundtrack a lot, so I'm quite satiated, but I understand why people wanted to hear the London Orchestra play all of the wonderful sounds that we hear across Skyrim. What I didn't expect, and what many didn't expect, was the surprise at the end, when in the final 10 minutes, Todd Howard shows up. He's talking about the next game that they're working on, Starfield, and then they have 10 full minutes of Starfield music. What I want you to do is take a brief listen to it, and it's gotta be brief because YouTube, demonetization, copyright claims, all that fun stuff. So it's got to be very brief, and then I'm going to fade it into the background of this video for you all to listen to. And don't worry, Bethesda's already confirmed this is on streaming services right now, but let's get a vibe on what Starfield sounds like. Yeah, everyone, right when I heard this, I thought, this is Bethesda Star Wars. After hearing how Todd and his team like to make the music first for their games, and we're seeing some of the concept art that was, again, very reminiscent of Star Wars. Like, I remember Aquila reminded us all of Tatooine. I was thinking, this game oozes Star Wars inspiration. If Bethesda's working on effectively their own Star Wars RPG, I'm hyped on tone and atmosphere alone. But the soundtrack really captured that. I have to admit, and I don't think a lot of people shared this mild concern, I think Einon Zur composes phenomenal soundtracks. He made Dragon Age Origins, which is one of my favorites of all time. Of course, his work on Fallout is legendary, but there's always a rustic, kind of familiar tone to his music, and I was really pleased, especially hearing that opening theme for Starfield, when it sounded different. I mean, it's a new IP, it's got to define itself, it can't have that overlap, kind of like the brooding tone that both Fallout and Dragon Age Origins had. So that was really nice to hear, and I hope you all enjoyed it as well, because I thought it was pretty neat. Now let's talk, of course, new concept art. We've got that right here. We've learned about 3 different regions across Starfield. To me, this reminds me of the what is defined as a pleasure city, Neon. I mean, of course, the signs speak for themselves. This reminds me of the cityscape we saw in Cyberpunk 2077. I know we can crank on Cyberpunk all day, but I think if it got anything right, it would be its art direction. And this reminds me a lot of that. Hopefully, not a bad omen, but I really like what I'm seeing here. And if this is an explorable area that has as much density as it looks to be in the concept art, which obviously they're never one-to-one, so don't expect that. But if it looks anything close to this, I'm going to be stoked to comb through some of these cities, because what you're going to see as we go through more of this concept art is just the sheer variety of environments they're going for. But before we get into that, we have this ship here landing on a planet. Again, I think this is Aquila, because based off the other concept art we've seen, that sort of Tatooine look, rocky, cavernous, deserty environment. To me, this is seemingly that, but it also suggests what a lot of us were thinking and assumed based off the Starfield trailer, that we're going to take our ship and go planet to planet. How exactly that'll work, whether it'll be just a loading screen or actually flying and then landing on set spots in the planet or landing wherever we want, that will be interesting to see how Bethesda handles that, or if it'll just be a hub like in the Outer Worlds. But anyway, that's a new piece of concept art. The last one is right here, and I love what I'm seeing with this one because, again, it kind of reminds me of the Citadel in Mass Effect. Looks, to to be a continuation of a piece of concept art we saw earlier that alluded to the idea of a city being a melting pot. So I'm loving what I'm seeing visually, and if it even captures an ounce of this color and variety, I think Starfield is going to be, at the bare minimum, a blast to explore and treat yourself to some eye candy. What I think is more relevant to a lot of us, though, beyond more concept art, is Bethesda continues just to drip feed us information on this game, which again is very surprising for them. There was a AMA for Todd Howard, and I was a little bit nervous for Todd, coming onto the internet after Fallout 76. Some people think he's hyperbolic. I was thinking, okay, hopefully people have kind spirits there. And it was great to see some really well thought out questions being asked. Like this one here, Elder Scrolls Sweet Roll says, I've read that a goal for Starfield is that it will be more of a hardcore RPG. Can you verify this and flesh that out in more detail? Does that mean the character creation will be more complicated like it was in Morrowind and Oblivion? To which Todd says, really excited about what the team has done with character creation here, including choosing background skills, etc. You can also pick your pronoun he, she, they, and we recorded all the relevant dialogue to support that choice. I think the latter part there is pretty important because a lot of role-playing games is about agency, and I always found it annoying when, for example, in KOTOR, I would do a playthrough as a woman and they would still refer to me as a dude. I'm like, really? It's one line of dialogue. Seems like a lot of RPGs overlook that, so I think it's good that they're doing that attention to detail. But of course, very relevant to a lot of us hardcore RPG fans, backgrounds, skills. We already learned a little bit about skills through the recent interview by Ryan McCaffrey with Todd Howard, where he said that the skills were almost a blending, if you will, of Fallout and Elder Scrolls. And the way I envision that is, at the bare minimum, we're going to see our skills progress a la Skyrim. So you use your one-handed goes up. I think that's going to continue here in Starfield. But as for the Fallout part of it, Fallout has a lot of out-of-combat skills that you can use in speech checks. I'm really hoping that's what Bethesda's going for here. That would be incredible to see because they did some skill checks in Far Harbor. That was kind of their FU DLC when they finally responded to all of the role-playing complaints that were occurring with Fallout 4, and then they did 76. So to see them get back to their roots in a more hardcore way would be great. But backgrounds are what really, really excited me here, because what it made me think of was Mass Effect. I know we're talking a lot about Mass Effect, but we're talking about sci-fi RPGs here, so what a perfect fit. Mass Effect, you can pick a number of backgrounds for your character that are just referred to throughout the game. It doesn't define you too much. It's just enough to color that you had a history of some kind, and the world responds to that in kind when they're going through your files, when they're referring to things you've done. This will be brought up. Again, the key with backgrounds is not to define your character too much, but I wonder what it's going to be. Like a space colonist, will you just be an explorer, lone wolf, and will they give you specific skills for them? Of course, time will tell on all of that, but how long will we have to wait to see Starfield? That's a big question there, and Todd actually answered that one. Hi Todd, even after 10 years, I still consider Skyrim the gold standard of open world single player RPG experiences. Does Starfield have any groundbreaking innovations that will set a high bar for the next generation of action RPGs, similar to what Skyrim has done this last decade? Thank you for your amazing work. To which Todd says, we prefer to just show it, which should be next summer. We're happy with the advancements we've been able to make, some of which you can see in the trailer shot in game. That last part there, really important because a lot of people hilariously thought it was CGI, which it was not. It was in game. Of course, with that being said, Starfield gameplay next summer seemed like a lock for most of us based off Bethesda's patterns. We kind of became familiar with that and how they like to reveal things. What's interesting here is he's not specifying E3. He said next summer. And I know that may sound like, well, Matt, those two are synonymous. And of course I agree. I think they are, and there's a complete chance that it shows up on Xbox's stage. But Todd Howard loves to come out and show his game for an extensive period of time. He did it with Fallout 4. He did it with Fallout 76. I'd be shocked if the brand new IP Starfield was the one exception. We said, no, let's show him like a trailer or two. So the way I view it is there just isn't enough time in a Bethesda Xbox crossover E3 conference to fit everything Xbox has to show as we continue to see leaks for it on top of a big Starfield reveal. Now, there's always the possibility that they just do a gargantuan, like 3-hour show. That could be a thing. I'm not going to say that's impossible, but I find it highly unlikely because you can just drown tons of content. What I think is actually going to happen is Starfield will split off and do its own gameplay reveal. But again, this is just speculation based off what I'm reading here, not really specifying E3, just saying next summer. Of course, that could just be me reading too deep into it. Now, this was also a really good question because a lot of developers noticed what happened with Cyberpunk, and Hired Thug asked, how has the release of Cyberpunk 2077 influenced your team's philosophy towards releasing games? Which Todd says, I can only speak to the issues we've had, such as Fallout 76. We let people down, and we were able to learn and be better from it. We are fortunate 3 years later to have 76 be one of our most played games, and it's thanks to the 11 million players who have made it an incredible community. It's made us much better developers in the end. And I'm going to be curious to see what that means. Starfield will be very telling because, of course, with the damage 76 has done, they need to win a lot of people over, and Bethesda is aware of that. I think that's become apparent at this point in time, that they know, even though the worst has passed for 76, and we see it on a bit of an upswing, that there is still the trust that needs to be earned, and that was a high damage move, not just for the Fallout IP, but of course for the entirety of Bethesda Game Studios. So to see them say that we've become better developers for it, I'm curious to see if that means polish, content, if this means ambitions, if they were burnt out and they just needed to refresh and this was the time to do it. But of course, the 11 million players also stands out to me. This is because we actually went to Statista to take a look at some stats, and even if these are remotely accurate, it's really interesting to see that Fallout 76 was at around 3 million sales, whereas Fallout 4 is at 13, right? And when I take a look at that, I think to myself, how many people likely downloaded this game for free or through Game Pass? That shows how few people were willing to spend money on this and just how, I think, weak of a product 76 is. So really interesting to see that number there. I love when companies share data. Now, where would Bethesda Game Studios games be without their modding community? And of course, Waze had a phenomenal question. Hey Todd, what type of mod support can we expect to see in Creation Kit Engine 2 for Starfield? Todd says, our plan, we gotta emphasize plan there, is to have full mod support like our previous games. Our modding community has been with us for 20 years. We love what they do and hope to see more make a career out of it, because we do know a lot of the people that are making mods for them are starting to get hired, which is smart because sometimes the mods we're seeing are a little bit better than the base game content. So you need those forward-thinking ideas of people who are longtime fans and love your project so much, they'll continue to work on them. But of course, knowing that they plan full-on mod support is again one of those givens, kind of like the summer reveal for gameplay, but it's good to see that it is a part of the plans with the brand new engine. We had no idea what changes would happen underneath the hood, but knowing that they want to do that mod support makes a lot of sense. They need it, right? These games would not be relevant. We wouldn't be talking Skyrim Anniversary, as much as I love it. We would not be talking about it at this point in time if mods didn't keep it alive. So it's great to see that this remains a focus and it will carry into, of course, Starfield. And if they use this creation engine 2 for, say, Elder Scrolls 6, then it should be fully solidified by then what we can expect for mod support in that game. Then we have, will there be any robot companions in Starfield? Yes, kind of. I don't know how you kind of have robot companions. I mean, we saw a little bit of a robot in the Starfield trailer, just chilling, you know, being left on the planet as we flew off. I thought that was kind of funny, but curious to see how companions are handled in this game. This is really important, I think, because as we see progression in machine learning tools and the ability to synthesize human voices, I wonder to myself, how will RPGs transform in the future? I think we could see some creative ways it's used, but will Bethesda do that? Todd says, we actually use such systems during development so we can play the game with voices, but there is no substitute for professional actors. They are a huge part of our development and are amazing partners in bringing these worlds to life. So it sounds to me like, yeah, it's cool. We use it for testing to maybe progress our development a little bit quicker, get a feel for the tone or whatever, but they're not going to use it to replace professional actors, which is amazing to hear. I always worry about, with science and technology moving forward, how games will look in the future. So that's good to see. Is the Amazon Fallout TV series still in the works? Todd says, moving ahead, really excited to be working with Jonah, Lisa, and Amazon on it. Very PR-ridden statement there. Not much to dig from, but it's still in development, and of course, we'll be talking about it when we can actually see it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's everything we got from the Todd Howard AMA to, of course, Starfield news and information. Plenty to go through here today. Hope you enjoyed this video today, and apologies for the, I guess, sloppier production values here. I hope you all understand just, you know, sometimes you feel like this is a home day. I'm feeling a little bit lower than usual. So let me know what you're thinking of all of this in the comments down below. Certainly looking forward to your thoughts. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll talk with you very soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.